음. 음. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 잠깐만요. Oh, sorry, I need to turn the volume down. 아이고, 뭐야. Okay, all right. 여러분, 안녕하세요. 제 말 들리시나요? Let me share my iPad screen. 공유. 안녕하세요, 여러분. Okay, there you go. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 채팅창을 열었습니다. I can now see the live chat box and I can see you guys coming in. 안녕하세요, Fighters Destiny님, 키스님, 타니카님, 태민님, 제님. 여러분 모두 안녕하세요. 출첵. 오웬님 출첵. Okay, can you guys see the screen? 혹시 화면이 보이시나요? 화면에서 the man and the woman are talking. Can you see the screen? 그 보이시나요? 다 보여요? Okay. So it's working fine now. All right. So this is my very first live class in 2025. And it's probably the first live in about 3 months, right? So I feel a little bit nervous, but I'm also quite excited to see you guys during stream. 네. 안녕하세요. 그러면 여러분, without further delay, let's get started with the class. 네. So, yeah, let me start with the intro first, guys. So I think a lot of students share the struggle where even though they've learned grammar and vocabulary, when they try to speak, it doesn't come out right away, or they first try to think in their native language and then translate it in Korean, which takes much more effort and can be quite exhausting. So today, I want to share some very simple tips on how you can practice speaking Korean while thinking in Korean. So when it comes to improving your speaking, it goes without saying that actually speaking out loud is important. But we also have to remember that everything you say starts with your thoughts. So the more you think in Korean, the more naturally and effortlessly your Korean speaking will flow. So there could be many aspects to thinking in Korean, but today I'll focus on the simplest tip that applies to all levels of learners, and I'll also guide you through some practical exercises, starting from easy sentences to a bit more complex sentences. All right, so moving on to the basics of how to structure your thoughts in Korean. So Korean sentences generally start with the big picture first and then move toward the details. So it's kind of like zooming in from a wide view to the specifics. So in other words, we arrange the elements in the order of what needs to exist first for the next thing to happen. What exists first? Think in terms of that. So let's take a look at this word order in Korean. So, 잠깐만요. Let me take out my pen. This is where I need to use my pen. Yes. Okay. So before a place can exist, there needs to be time first, right? So this is a bit of a scientific idea, but time is a broader concept than space, right? So that makes sense. And then within that time and place, there will be people or objects. And only when these people or objects exist can an action take place. So this word order actually makes sense. So before we move on to practicing with an example, there's an additional note that I would like to add. So this particular order over here itself isn't a strict order that must always be followed. There are cases where this order may change depending on the emphasis or context. So for example, you can say the objects first and then place, or you could say you could say place first and then time. But as a general rule of thumb, thinking in this bigger concept to smaller details. I'm moving from the bigger concepts to smaller details. In this way can help prevent you from getting your thoughts tangled up while speaking, because it gives you a clear order of what to say first and then what to say next, and you can never go wrong with it. So now with this in mind, let's describe what's happening in this video in Korean. So I'll play the video. What's happening in this video, guys? So you now saw the video. So first, let's think of the biggest concept. Where is it? 어디예요? Where is it? Where are they? 어디 있나요? 잠깐만요. Let me move to... 안 들려. No, this video doesn't have an audio, guys. This video doesn't have an audio. 잠깐만요. Let me move to my note. Okay. 여기서 okay, there could be various answers. There's no one right answer to it, but if you thought of the place first, then that's fine. 그렇죠. 공원, 그렇죠. Park. It's park. 공원이에요. 일단은 공원. 그쵸? And then let's zoom in on the specifics. What do you see? What are there? Or who are there? In the park, there are 사람들이 있어요. 사람들이 있어요. 사람들, 공원, 사람들. And then what are they doing? What action are they doing, guys? They were talking. 얘기해요. So, 공원, 사람들, 얘기해요. If you just follow the natural word order, we get 공원, 사람들, 얘기해요. So this itself isn't a grammatically correct sentence because they're missing some of the appropriate particles. And the more natural sentence would be 공원에서 사람들이 얘기해요, which means people are talking in the park. So this 에서 is a place marker and this E is a subject marker. But native speakers will still understand what you're trying to say by the first version. 공원, 사람들, 얘기해요. If you say like this, native speakers will still get it. This means that even if your grammar isn't perfect, as long as you use the right words and your word order is natural, people can understand you to a certain extent. So I'm not trying to say that grammar is not important, because to form completely natural and correct sentences, you do need things like particles or suffixes and other grammar elements to connect the words smoothly. But if you get too caught up in these details and hesitate too much, you might end up not speaking at all. Instead, even if some of the grammar elements are missing or incorrect, if you use vocabulary that fits the situation and put the words in the right order, people will understand you much better than if you say nothing or get stuck. So even if your Korean sounds a little broken, especially as a beginner, you get a much better communication this way. So especially as a beginner, it'll be very helpful to practice speaking with this thought process. 아이고, 어디 갔어? Sorry, with this thought process of, instead of having the pressure to say everything from the start. Now, let's try another example. You want to tell your friends what you did over the weekend, and this is what you did. So now you want to tell your friends or like your coworkers. So now let's think of, when was it? Let's think of a bigger concept. When was it? I just said it's weekend, right? Weekend. So you could think of 주말 first Or if you want to be more specific, it could be like Saturday, 토요일, or Sunday, 일요일. But let's go with 주말 for now. 주말. And where is it? Where? Where is it, guys? Where? This is a playhouse. Playhouse 극장이에요. 극장. 주말 극장. 그쵸? And now let's zoom in on the people and object. So who is it with? So let's say you are a woman. This is you. Then you are with your boyfriend or 남자친구. This could be your boyfriend or this could be your 남편, husband. And if you are a guy, this could be your 여자친구 or this could be your 아내, wife. But since I am a girl, I will go with 남자친구. So 주말 극장, 남자친구, 주말 극장, 남자친구. And what is it? What is it? What? What are they doing? This is a play, right? 연극, 연극. So this is another detail that follows. And what action? What exactly are they doing with it? They are watching it, right? Watching it, watching it. 그래서 you could use the verb 보다, conjugated in past tense, which is 봤어요. So I won't get into like grammatical details here in this class, like how to conjugate, what the rule of conjugation is. We'll focus more on or arranging them in the correct order. So if you say 주말, 극장, 남자친구, 연극, 봤어요. This itself isn't a grammatically correct sentence because they're missing some of the necessary particles like 주말에, 극장에서, 남자친구랑 연극을 봤어요. So if you say like this, you're speaking perfectly. But what matters more than these details is that you're able to think of the right words and say them in the natural order, right? 그래서 so you can say it like this. 주말에 극장에서 남자친구랑 연극을 봤어요. And even if you're missing some particles in between, that's fine when you're speaking. It doesn't have like dramatic effect in conveying your message to the other person. The other person will understand what you're trying to say. And on an additional note, guys, you might be wondering, what about I, the subject, right? Where did I put I? Like I watched it, I. So if you want to put I, you can do it. You can put it at the beginning of a sentence. 저는, and then 주말에. But in Korean sentences, guys, the subject is often omitted in I statements because in many cases, when you're talking about your own experiences, it's usually clear from the context that the subject is I. But if we do include it, it typically comes at the beginning of a sentence. So I think it's actually a universal pattern across languages that the subject, or I, tends to be placed at the front part of a sentence. And in Korean, it's the same. But like I said, when the subject is contextually obvious, especially when the subject is I, it's often omitted. So in this class, for I statements, we'll practice with the subject removed from a sentence. 이렇게 할게요. And now we're going to move on to actual exercises, 네, where we describe what's happening in the photos and videos that I brought. And before we begin, let's go over the vocabulary that we'll be using in the exercises first. So we'll first start with the 7 words, 5 nouns, and 2 verbs. So let's start with the nouns. 일단은 this one is 의자. You can repeat after me, guys. When I say the word 의자, 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 chair, 의자, 커피, coffee, 설탕, sugar, 설탕. 그다음에 세탁기, 세탁기. So this key means machine. So it's a washing machine. 세탁기, 세탁기, 세탁기. 그 다음에 these are all 옷. 옷이에요, 옷. This character actually looks like a person standing, so which kind of does remind you of clothes, right? So 옷, you can make that association if that helps. 다음에 let's move on to verbs, right? Verbs. 앉아요, 앉아요, 앉아요. So actually, guys, this is the conjugated version. The verb at the top is the conjugated version, and the word in the parenthesis is the base form, also known as the dictionary form. So if you're completely new to Korean grammar, please note that base form of a verb cannot be used in a sentence as it is. It needs to be conjugated like this or combined with other appropriate like endings or conjunctions. So when we speak, we won't use the base form. We use the conjugated form. And so this is what you can pay attention to for now. The word at the top. So 앉아요, 앉아요, 앉아요. This sound, z sound, moves over to a vowel sound. So 앉아요, 앉아요 means to sit down. Sit down, sit down. 그 다음에 넣어요, 넣어요. 히읗 받침, right? The final consonant 히읗 and vowel sound combined, this 히읗 loses its sound. So you don't have to, you cannot, you shouldn't say 넣어요. 히읗 gets silenced. And so this is pronounced 넣어요, 넣어요. And 넣어요 means you put something inside somewhere. That could be a bag, a box, or anything, or a cup. 넣어요, 넣어요, 넣어요. All right. Now, let's move on to the video. 잠깐만요, video. I have to play it here. 잠깐만요, 여러분. All right, so now let's describe what's happening in this video, guys. In this video, I'll play it now. Around there. So let's say this is what you're doing. This action is what you're doing. What are you doing? Imagine that you're doing this action. So when someone asks, 뭐 해요? What are you doing? How would you answer it? 다시, one more time. 아이고. 다시. What are you doing? What are you doing? 그쵸? 타니카님, 의자에 앉아요. 그쵸? When you think of this action, you first think of the bigger concept. What needs to exist first? 의자 has to exist first, right? 의자. And then you can think of the action that you do with it, which is 앉아요. 앉아요. If you want it to be perfect sentence, perfect, grammatically perfect, you have to add the particle 에. You sit on a chair. 의자에 앉아요. But saying 의자 앉아요 itself still is understandable. 의자 앉아요. 의자 앉아요. 그 다음에 let's move on to the next one. 잠깐만요. I don't tolerate spamming in chat box. So whoever is spamming, I will have to block. All right? Block. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now moving on to the next video, guys. Let's move on to the next video. Imagine you're doing this action. What are you doing? 뭐 해요? 여러분 뭐 해요? What are you doing? 뭐 해요? 오케이, 좋아요. 타니카님 아주 좋아요. 일단은, so what exists first? Think of what exists first. Coffee exists first. And then in there, in the coffee, there is 설탕. 그쵸? And what are you specifically doing with 설탕? You're putting it in the coffee, so you can use the appropriate verb for it, which is 넣어요. 커피, 설탕, 넣어요. And a more grammatically perfect sentence would be 커피에 in the coffee 설탕을 넣어요. This 뭐뭐에 넣다. If you wish to say it perfectly, it would be better if you remember 에 넣다, to put in somewhere. But just saying 커피, 설탕 넣어요. It's still understandable to a certain degree. So 커피에 설탕을 넣어요. 이렇게 말할 수 있습니다. 그 다음에 let's move on to the next video. Next video. Imagine you're doing this action. What are you doing? What are you doing? 여러분 뭐 해요? 여러분 뭐 해요? 그렇죠. You think of what exists first. What exists first. The bigger concept. 그렇죠. 세탁기. 세탁기. 세탁기예요. 세탁기. 그 다음에 and what exactly did you put? 세탁기. The details were 옷. And then you do the action of putting it in. 넣어요. So 세탁기에 옷을 넣어요 would be a grammatically perfect sentence, but 세탁기 옷 넣어요 still is understandable. So 세탁기 옷 넣어요. 세탁기 옷 넣어요. 그 다음에 I put clothes in the washing machine, right? And let's move on to the next practice. Before we start, we will also go over 7 words, 5 nouns, and 2 verbs first. 2 verbs first. So 카페인데요. 여러분 이게 if you read it so the correct way, the most correct way to read this word would be 카페, but most native speakers say read it like 카페. 카페. Even if this is not phonetically correct. So just keep this in mind whenever you hear 카페. Like why do people say 카페 when it's 카페? It's just because I don't know. For us, it sounds a lot better to say 카페 than 카페. For some reason, it sounds more catchy or whatever. So just remember that we often pronounce it as 카페. But 카페 is the correct pronunciation, but I'll go with 카페, okay? 카페. 카페 means coffee shop. 카페. 그 다음에 식탁. 식 literally means eat, to dine. And 탁 means a table. So 식탁 means a dining table. 식탁. 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 Next one. 숟가락. 숟가락. This ut sound, a final ut sound, it affects the next consonant ki역 to become more tensed sound. So 숟가락's the correct way to pronounce 숟가락 would be 숟가락. 숟가락. This ut sound affects the next consonant sound to become more tensed. So 숟가락. 숟가락. Spoon. 숟가락. And 젓가락. 젓가락. 으뜨. 으뜨. This also affects the next sound to be more tensed. So the correct way, the most natural way to pronounce it would be 젓가락. 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 Chopstick. So 숟가락, spoon, 젓가락, chopstick. And 음료. 음료. 음료 means beverage. 음료. 음료. 그 다음에 let's move on to verbs. Verbs. 아까 여러분, do you guys remember 넣어요? 넣어요 means to put something in, and 넣어요 and 놓아요 actually look very similar. So these two, a lot of learners get them mixed up. 넣어요 and 놓아요. But 넣어요는요, 사실 you put in somewhere. So this kind of looks like you're putting it in a box, right? Putting it in a box. And this one kind of looks like you are putting something on somewhere. So maybe that could be a helpful tip for you to distinguish the two words. Whatever works, right? Whatever works. So 놓아요, instead of putting inside somewhere, it's more like putting on somewhere. It could be putting on a desk, putting something on your head, putting something on a printer or whatever. You put on it, not in it. So 놓아요, 놓아요. You put on top. 그렇죠. You put it on top of something. 그러면 and then the next verb is 주문해요. 주문해요. 주문해요 means to order something, to make an order, to buy something. 주문해요. 주문해요. All right, so now with these vocab, let's practice describing what's happening in this video. Come on. Oh, all right. 자, what are you doing? Imagine you're doing this action. What are you doing? 여러분 뭐 해요? 여러분 뭐 해요? 뭐 해요? 뭐 해요? So what exists first, guys? What exists first? What exists first? 식탁, right? 식탁 is the biggest concept here. 저 식탁. 그 다음에, and then what was the details, guys? Details. Details were 숟가락 and 젓가락. 숟가락 and 젓가락, right? 숟가락, 젓가락. And then what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? You are putting it on it. You're putting on top of the table. So this time it's 놓아요, not 넣어요, right? 놓아요, 놓아요, 놓아요. And a more correct way to say this would be 식탁에 on the table 숟가락하고, or you could also say 숟가락이랑, which corresponds to and as in connecting two nouns. So 숟가락하고 or 숟가락이랑 젓가락을 놓아요. But still, the first version still, it's still understandable to a certain degree. 식탁, 숟가락, 젓가락 놓아요. 그리고 I saw in the chat someone said 식탁에 수저를 놓아요. This is a really good word. So you can say 숟가락 and 젓가락, but these two words combined, there's an easier word to combine these two words, which is 수저. You could also just say 수저, which means spoon and a chopstick. 수저 is a word that include both spoon and chopstick. So you can also say 식탁에 수저 놓아요. 식탁에 수저 놓아요 is also fine. 잘했어요. Very nice. 그다음에 let's move on to this picture. This picture. So let's say you are this person. You are a 손님. You are a customer. You are a customer. What are you doing? 뭐 해요? 여러분 뭐 해요? 뭐 해요? What are you doing? Let's be more specific. Bigger concept and then details. So bigger concept is that you are at a cafe, 카페, and then you're ordering. 그쵸? You could be more specific with your beverage. You could say coffee, but let's use the word that we learned, that we went over in the vocab session, which was beverage, right? 음료, 음료, 카페, 음료. And then what you're doing with it, what you're exactly doing with it specifically is you're ordering it. So you could say 카페 음료 주문해요. Or to be more grammatically accurate, 카페에서 음료를 주문해요 by putting in the appropriate particles. 좋아요, 여러분. 좋아요. So by now, I hopefully you guys are used to this thought process of thinking a bigger concept first and then adding more details, right? So 그런 식으로 연습을 하면 돼요. So that was more of a beginner level, low beginner level exercises. And now let's move on to, let's take it up a notch and practice with expressions at the upper beginner level. And here, the rule of what exists first comes first still applies. So, for example, guys, in sentences that express cause and effect, which one do you think would come first? Do you think cause will come first or effect or result? in Korean sentences? Which one do you think makes more sense to come first? 그렇죠, 타니카님. cause죠, 키스님. 그렇죠, cause죠. 왜냐면 cause happens first. It's something that's like so naturally logical that I don't even have to explain, right? Cause comes first. So that's why when using conjunctions that indicate a reason, such as 아, 서, the first clause presents the reason or the cause, or you could also say reason, while the second clause shows the result or the following action. 그래서 여러분, for example, guys, you want to say, I can't go because I'm busy. When you're trying to speak in Korean, what would you think of first? What would you think of first, guys? What would you think of first? You would think of the reason first. No, reason precedes result. So you would think of, I'm busy. 바빠. 바빠. You would think of busy first, and then you connect it with the conjunction 서, and then you say, I can't go. 바빠서 못 가. 바빠서 못 가 in 반말, or if you want to practice in 존댓말, 못 가요. 바빠서 못 가요. 바빠서 못 가요. So the reason comes first. It makes sense for reason to come first. And how about, I learned Korean because I like K-drama. When you want to express this, you would want to think of the reason first. Oh, I like K-drama. This is what triggered me to learn Korean. So you think of, I like K-drama. 한국 드라마, right? 한국 드라마 좋아해. 좋아해. 한국 드라마 좋아해. Even in this clause, you think of the bigger concept first and then move on to the details of action. So 한국 드라마 좋아해. 좋아해 comes first. 좋아해서. So also you learn Korean. Learn Korean. Even when you want to say you learn Korean, you think of the bigger concept first, which is 한국어, and then you learn it. 한국 드라마 좋아해서 한국어 배워요. 이렇게 쓸 수 있어요. 그쵸? 그리고 same with the sentence patterns that express intention and action. 여러분, which one would come first in a Korean sentence? Intention or action? This is pretty obvious, but still, I would like you to answer. Which one comes first, guys? Intention or action? Obviously, intention comes first. Obviously, because you first decide to do something before acting, right? So intention comes first. So when using conjunctions like 으려고 that expresses your intention, of course, intention is gonna come first, followed by an action, the corresponding action, the according action, right? 그래서 예를 들어서 여러분, if you want to say, I went to a cafe to meet a friend. To meet a friend. If this is what's on your mind, you would think of the intention first. Meet a friend. Meet a friend. Meet a friend is the intention. Meet a friend. Meet a friend. 친구 만나. 친구 만나. 친구 만나. 친구 만나. 다음에 친구 만나려고. Or maybe I will put it with a different color. 친구 만나. And then the corresponding action. I went to a cafe. I went to a cafe. The bigger concept, 카페, right? 카페. And then what did you do with it? You went there. 카페 갔어요. 카페 갔어요. Or 카페에 갔어요. I went to a coffee shop. So 친구 만나려고 카페에 갔어요. 여러분, so while you're speaking, if you can think of the, let's say you cannot think of the conjunction 려고 at that moment, even if you learned it, that's okay. Just move on to the next part. 친구 만나 카페에 갔어요. So it's better to keep the conversation flowing this way than to take too much time trying to get it perfect, especially as a beginner. Uh, what matters more than like these suffixes, like these particles and grammatical details is the core message of your sentence, like what you're actually trying to say, the real substance in a sentence. And after you speak, native speakers might naturally correct you or add any missing part for you. So that's when you can go, oh, right. Yeah, Diogo was what I was trying to add. Diogo was what I was trying to think of. And this way you are communicating and learning at the same time, right? 그래서 just want to remind you that when you're speaking, you don't have to worry too much about the grammatical details because it's the real substance that matters more. And moving on to the next one, I make a budget to save money. I make a budget to save money. 이것도 you would think of saving money first because this is your intention. Save money, save money. 돈, 돈 아껴. 돈 아껴, 돈 아껴. You can think of it first. And then it's actually 돈 아끼려고, 아끼려고. Because 려고 is a conjunction that's combined with the stem of the verb. So grammatically correct way to say would be 아끼려고. But if you couldn't think that far, it's okay if you think of the first word that comes to mind, 돈 아껴 or 돈 아껴려고. And then you say the action that you do because of it, according to that intention. I make a budget. This is a bit of a difficult, sentence, right? Because it involves some advanced words, but that's okay. You can learn new words. 예산, 예산을 짜요. 예산을 짜다 means to make a budget. 돈 아끼려고, 돈을 아끼려고 예산을 짜요. 이런 식으로 말할 수 있어요. 그 다음에 the same thing applies to when your sentence is about you say something or you think something or you want something or you're planning to do something. The content comes first, followed by the action of speaking or thinking or wishing or planning. And this is because the content itself must exist before you can say something or think about it or hope for it, right? Content is something that exists first, whether in your mind or whatever, for you to do that action, right? So it actually makes sense why content comes first if you think of it this way. 그래서 So, when we want to use 고 싶어요, one of the upper beginner expressions, that means that express what you want to do, the action that you want to do, right? You can always what you want to do, the content of what you want to do comes first, followed by the expression of you want. Verb 고 싶어요. Verb 고 싶어요. So if you want to say, I want to drink water. So this is what's on your mind. And if you want to express that in Korean, you want to think of your wish first, your specific wish, content first, content of your wish, which is drinking water. Drinking water. Oh, okay. Drink water. Drink water. 물 마셔. 물 마셔. 물 마셔. Or actually it's 물 마시 because this one also has to be combined with the stem of the verb. But these are the grammatical details you can always refine over time, right? You can naturally refine over time. So 마시, 물 마시다 is what you think of first, and then say 싶어요. 물 마시고 싶어요. 물 마시고 싶어요. 물 마시고 싶어요. And how about this? I want to sleep at home. So sleep at home is the content of your wish. Sleep at home. Sleep at home. Sleep at home. Okay, at home. Bigger concept first. At home. 집. 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 And at home is actually 집에서. You sleep there. 자. 집에서 자고 싶어요. 집에서 자고 싶어요. So you can see that the content comes first, followed by like the action of wanting or saying or thinking. So 집에서 자고 싶어요. I want to sleep at home. So you can see that the word order is kind of the exact opposite from English in Korean, right? So 집에서 자고 싶어요 is how you would say I want to sleep at home. 그리고 let's move on to a bit of a bit more advanced expression in beginner level. 는 것 같아요. 는 것 같아요. This is one of the like advanced grammar points, like I said, in the beginner level, and this expresses your thoughts or feelings. So it's like saying I think this or I feel this. So if you want to say, I think it's too fast. I think it's too fast. You would want to think of the content first. Content first. It's too fast. 너무, 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 너무 빨라, right? 너무 빨라. 빨라 is fast. 그리고 and then you can add 는 것 같아요. So actually, guys, let me write the correct answer first and give you some like notes that you can take note of. 일단 너무, you could say 너무 빠른 것 같아요 is actually the correct way to say I think it's too fast. 너무 빠른 것 같아요. 근데 you can see that this 는 것 같아요 expression has quite a complex rule for which suffix to use when connecting it with a verb or an adjective, right? The suffix rule is quite complex. For example, if you're combining it with an adjective, you add a certain suffix, and if it's a verb, you add a different suffix, and it also different depending on the tense, right? But when speaking, guys, you don't always have to get every suffix perfectly right, especially as a beginner. So for example, if 빨라 is the closest thing you can think of right now for too fast, you can just say, 너무 빨라 것 같아요. 너무 빨라 것 같아요. You can say like this. Native speakers will still understand you, and actually, they might actually naturally repeat it correctly. If you say 너무 빨라 것 같아요, native speakers will naturally say 너무 빠른 것 같아요, 빠른 것 같아요. Their intention isn't necessarily to correct you, but I think it's a natural instinct of a native speaker to kind of restate what the non-native speaker said in a broken way, in a correct way. Do you get what I'm saying? I think a lot of English native speakers do that. A lot of Chinese native speakers do that. I think it's a natural tendency of native speakers. But what I'm trying to say is that itself will reinforce the correct phrasing for you naturally. Like, you say this, and the native speakers say, 너무 빠른 것 같아요. And then you can go, oh yeah, that's what I should have said. So again, you're learning and communicating at the same time, right? So when you're writing, guys, you have more time to think about grammatical details, right? But when speaking, instead of overthinking grammar, try to say what comes to mind first. And as long as the word order makes sense, the native speakers will understand you. So if you said, for example, I think 것 같아요 너무 빨라. 것 같아요 너무 빨라. It's unclear what you're trying to say in Korean's perspective. It's unclear what you're trying to say. But if you switch the order and say 너무 빨라 것 같아요, even if it's broken Korean, you can at least convey what you mean better. And that's actually what makes the communication, right? Understanding and being understood. So try to practice speaking this way. And like I said earlier, you can refine your way into correction over time. Right? All right. And moving on to the last expression in a more advanced level of beginner. 다고했어요 is an expression that you can use for someone said something. So this means someone said that, and then the content. So so it makes sense why content comes first, followed by the action of saying, because in Korean, content comes first. Content must exist first for you to say something, right? So content comes first. So if you want to say, teacher said, my Korean has improved. Teacher said, my Korean has improved. You want to think of the content first. But in this sentence, of course, the subject, like I mentioned at the very beginning, subject comes first. So mention subject. Who said it? 선생님. 선생님. Who said it? Who said it? And then you move on to the content. Content. My Korean has improved. My Korean has improved. My Korean has improved. 제 한국어, 제 한국어 or 제 한국어가 for improve, you can use the verb 늘다. And it has to be conjugated in past tense. 제 한국어가 늘었. And then you say. 늘었다고 했어요. 선생님이 제 한국어가 늘었다고 했어요. So content comes first, followed by the action of saying, speaking. So, 제 한국어가 늘었다고 했어요. My Korean has improved. That's what she said. 제 한국어가 늘었다고 했어요. 이렇게 쓸 수 있습니다, 여러분. Okay. 그러면 여러분, let's move on to the second speaking exercise. Second speaking exercise where we complete the dialogue using the expressions, the conjunctions that we just covered so far. And before we get into practice, let's go over the words again. Words 한번 봅시다. That we're actually going to use in the practice. 자, 여러분. 등산을 가다. 여기서 등산 is a Sino-Korean word that literally means mount. So 산 means mountain, and 등 means to climb. So it literally means to go mountain climbing. So to go hiking. 등산을 가다. 등산. And the next one. 공기가 맑다. 공기 means air. And when you say 공기가 맑다, it means the air is clean or the air is fresh. So 공기가 맑다. Okay? For 맑다, you can read it like this. 맑다. 공기가 맑다. 다음에 기분이 좋다. Oh, so for this part, guys, I put the words in the dictionary form, the base form, but like I said, guys, you cannot use the base form itself in a sentence. It must be conjugated or combined with like other, suffixes or conjunctions or endings. Anyways, moving on. 기분이 좋다. 기분이 좋다. 기분 means mood. 기분 이제 mood란 뜻이고요. 좋다 means to be good. So your mood is good. So it means something feels good or you feel good. 기분이 좋다. If it's conjugated, it would be 좋아, right? 좋아. And next one, 멋있다. So 멋있다 is an adjective that can be used to describe many things. If you describe a behavior or action as 멋있다, it means like it's respectable or it's impressive. 멋있다. And if you describe a scenery as 멋있다, it means it's beautiful. Or 멋있다 can also mean handsome if it's used for a guy. But if it's used for a scenery, it means beautiful. 멋있다. And if it's conjugated, it would be 멋있어. 그리고 체력을 키우다. 체력 is also a Sino-Korean word that means body, 체, strength, 력. So 체력 means physical strength, as in physical stamina. And 키우다 means to raise. And when it's conjugated, it would become 키워. So 체력을 키우다, to build your stamina, to raise your physical strength. 체력을 키우다. Is there more? Oh, this is the last one. 운동하다. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with this word because it's one of the most basic Korean words. 운동해 would be its conjugated form. So 운동하다. 운동해 means exercise, workout. 운동하다. So now using these words, 등산을 가다, 공기가 맑다, 기분이 좋다, 멋있다, 체력을 키우다, 운동하다. Let's let's start our speaking practice where we become be, right? So you don't need to get your sentence perfectly right. Like you don't need to get your sentence perfect. The goal of this practice is to train your mind to focus on the bigger idea or the main idea first and then details, so that you can naturally form sentences in the correct order. So instead of just translating, guys, take the meaning to heart. Take this meaning to heart and speak as if you genuinely mean what you're saying in Korean. Think that you can imagine yourself to be a native Korean speaker. If you're a native Korean speaker, how would you say it? All right? We're going through that kind of training. All right, so I want to go hiking. I want to go hiking. You would say your content of the wish first. Go hiking. 등산 가다. 등산을 가다 or 등산 가. Want to. 고 싶어요. 등산 가고 싶어요. 등산 가고 싶어. Oh, or actually, 잠깐만요. I forgot to translate A's part for you. A. So A said, 이번 주말에 뭐 할 거야? 이번 주말, this weekend, what will you do? So what are you doing this weekend? 이번 주말에 뭐 할 거야? And since A is speaking in 반말, right? He or she is speaking in 반말, the casual speech. So let's go with casual speech for B as well. 등산 가고 싶어. 등산 가고 싶어. The air is fresh, so I think it will feel great. When you want to say this, reason first, reason. The air is fresh. 공기가 맑아. 그쵸? 공기가 맑아. Reason is that 공기가 맑아. 공기가 맑아. So, 맑아서, 공기가 맑아서, I think it will feel great. Content first, and then express it as your thought. It will feel great. 기분이. So actually, guys, 기분이, the correct way to say I think it will feel great is by adding 을 suffix. 좋을 것 같아. And this 을 suffix, guys, is used to connect 기분이 좋다 and 것 같다 to represent the, sorry. What am I saying? I got mixed it up. So 같아. So this 을 suffix represents the future tense. So this is the correct suffix that you need to use. But like I mentioned, guys, suffixes aren't something that you need to stress over when speaking. It's more important to say your core message, even if you're missing grammatical details. But of course, if you can get it right from the start, that would be the most ideal, right? But, especially as a beginner, we cannot expect, it to be ideal all the time, nor is it realistic, nor is it possible, right, for us to be perfect, like say perfect sentences when we're just starting out. So it's okay if you mess up some of the suffixes, as long as you get your core message right. So 기분이 좋을 것 같아가 맞고요. Next one. 오, 좋네. Oh, that sounds nice. 어느 산으로 갈 거야? Which mountain will go? So which mountain will you go? 오, 좋네. 어느 산으로 갈 거야? B says, my friend said that 설악산 is really beautiful. 여러분, 설악산 is a proper noun. So you can use, it's the name of a mountain in Korea. It's one of the most famous mountains. And you can use this word, 설악산. 설악산 is the name of the mountain. So my friend said that 설악산 is beautiful. So who said it? Subject, who said it? 내 친구. 내 친구가, let me use a different color. 내 친구가, and the content of what he said, what she or he said, 내 친구가 설악산 is beautiful. 설악산 멋있다. 설악산 멋있다. 설악산 멋있어. 설악산 멋있어. This is what he said. And then you mentioned that this is what he said. 다고 했어. 멋있다고 했어. So content first, and then that's what he said. 설악산 멋있다고 했어. 내 친구가 설악산 멋있다고 했어. 그래서, so 거기로 갈 거야. 여러분, 여기서 if you want to connect this sentence and this sentence to be like one sentence, combine these two in one sentence, you can say 했어요 plus 그래서 become 해서 멋있다고 해서 거기로 갈 거야. And in that case, this rule of cause, reason coming first, and then the result also applies, right? Because my friend says 설악산 is beautiful, I will go there. So 내 친구가 설악산 멋있다고 해서 거기로 갈 거야. 갈 거야. 이렇게 쓸 수 있습니다. 다음에 last one. 잘 다녀와. Have a safe trip. 잘 다녀와. 준비는 잘했어? So 준비 means preparation. 잘했어? Did you do preparation well? So did you prepare well? Are you all prepared? 준비는 잘했어? And you want to say, as preparation, I've been working out to build stamina, the stamina that you need to go hiking. So in this case, you want to say your result, intention first, and then the following corresponding action. So build stamina. We learn how to say build stamina in Korean, which is 체력을 키우다. 체력을 키우려고. And you can say 뭐 운동해요. And if you can also use present progressive. Present progressive 운동하고 잠깐만요. I will match it with 반말 casual speed. 운동해 or 운동하고 있어. 운동하고 있어. I've been working out in order to build stamina. 체력을 키우려고 운동하고 있어요. or 운동해. 이런 식으로 쓸 수 있습니다. And this is not the end, guys. So far, by now, I'm pretty sure you have a good understanding of how Korean generally follows the bigger ideas to details pattern, right? But there's one distinction that we have to make from this rule, which is when one element in a sentence modifies another element. So in that case, the modifying element comes right before a modified element. So this would be kind of an exception because this is where details precede a bigger element. And to clarify, guys, let me erase this for a second. To clarify, modify means to directly add description or information to another particular word. So, for example, guys, 책을 읽는 아이. This part is the modifier, and this is the main word that the modifier modifies. And 열심히 is a modifier, and 공부했어요 is a main word. The modifier modifies the main element. So in these cases, modifier, the detail, comes first, followed by the main word that it describes. So, for example, guys, with 책을 읽는 아이, instead of saying, so if you want to say a child reads a book, you would say 아이가 책을 읽어요. 아이가 책을 읽어요 as a full sentence. But if you want to say a kid that is reading a book, a child that is reading a book, you can attach 책을 읽다, the description of reading a book, right in front, directly in front of 아이, to directly describe this 아이, this kid, as a a girl, sorry, a child that is reading a book. So there's more to learn about this 는 suffix, which is used to turn a verb into a modifier. But we won't go into the details in this video. And if you like to learn more about 는 as a modifying suffix, I'll link the lesson to it in the description box after class. And also with 열심히 공부했어요. 열심히 means like hard, diligently, earnestly, with effort 이런 뜻인데요. Earnestly. So 열심히 is placed directly before the verb to describe how the action of studying was done. So 열심히 is actually an adverb that modifies a verb and adverbs like this that directly adds details to how the action was done usually comes right before a verb. So for example, if you want to say, I studied comfortably, comfortably, the adverb comfortably comes directly before a verb. If you want to say, you worked half-heartedly, half-heartedly describes your action of working, so it comes right before an action. 대충 일했어요. Or if you want to say, I studied for a long time, you would say, 오래 공부했어요. One thing about 오래, guys, 오래가요. I'm pretty sure you guys know 오래 is for a long time. And this itself is not a time now, guys. It doesn't provide time information, like at time, at what time something was done. It's more about how something was done for a long time. Something was done for a long time. So please don't mistake 오래 as giving time information at what time. It's more like an adverb. 오래. All right, so aside from these cases where you're using modifiers, Korean generally follows the big picture to details pattern where what exists first comes first. So modifiers are the distinction that you can note separately, right? Separately. So to practice what we just learned, to reinforce what we just learned, let's go through one more speaking exercise. This is our last one, guys, I promise. So here, we're going to put the words in the correct order. And since it's a speaking practice, I would like you to actually say them out loud instead of just thinking them in your head, okay? Now let's go. So how would you naturally say, I confidently gave a speech, I gave a speech in front of many people confidently in Korean? How would you say, I gave a speech in front of many people confidently in Korean, guys? 일단은 먼저 place, 그쵸? place information부터 줘야겠죠? place, 많은 사람들 앞에서, 그렇죠? 많은 사람들 앞에서, place first, bigger concept first, and then, you think of how you did the action. 자신 있게, confidently, 자신 있게 발표했어요. 많은 사람들 앞에서 자신 있게 발표했어요. This would be the most natural way you can say, I gave a speech in front of many people confidently. 그 다음에, let's move on to the second one. This one's easier. I read an interesting book, or I read an interesting book. What would be the most natural word order? I read an interesting book. 그렇죠. This one was easy, right? So, 그렇죠. 재미있는 책. 재미있는 책, 재미있는 is a modifier that gives information about what kind of book it is. A fun book, an interesting book. Oh, and what exactly do you do with it? What specifically do you do with it? You read it. 재밌는 책 읽어요. 재밌는 책 읽어요. 다음에, how about the next one? People walk fast. People are walking fast. How would you say people are walking fast? 그렇죠. 일단은 the subject 먼저 나오고 사람들이 빨리 걸어요. In what manner comes first and then the action. 사람들이 빨리 걸어요. 사람들이 빨리 걸어요. 좋습니다. Very good. 빨리 걸어요. People walk fast. Next one. The song that my friend listens to is really good. Or the song that my friend is listening to is really good. How would you say it? What would be the most natural way to say it in Korean? The song that my friend is listening to is good. 좋아요. 대체님 아주 잘하셨어요. 그렇죠. 일단은 노래, you're listening to a song and you can say 노래. If you just want to say the song is really good, you can say 노래 정말 좋아요. 노래 정말 좋아요. Or you could also put the subject marker in front for 노래. 노래가 정말 좋아요. But when you're adding details to what kind of song, you can put it directly in front of it. So 친구가 듣는 노래가 친구가 듣는 노래가. This 는, guys, this 는. When 는 is placed after a noun, that 는 is a topic marker. But when 는 is placed after a verb, that is a modifier form of a verb. So 는 is a modifier form. So it comes before the main element. So 친구가 듣는 노래가 정말 좋아요. The song is really good. 노래 is a subject of being good. So 노래를 아니고 노래가가 맞습니다. If we are in terms of grammatical exactness, 노래가 정말 좋아요 is correct. Not 노래를 정말 좋아요. 그 다음에 여러분 이거는 so how would you say the children playing outside look happy? The children playing outside look happy in the most natural way in Korean. So this involves an expression that I didn't necessarily mention in the class today, but still, I would like you to use that thought process of main element first, content first, and then the corresponding verb. In that way, what do you think would make the most sense for the natural word order? 그렇죠. 맞아요. 밖에서 노는 아이들 일단은 if you want to say children look joyful, children look happy, you could say 아이들 and the subject marker 아이들이 즐거워 보여요. 즐거워 보여. When you say something looks happy, something looks a certain way, that certain way exists first for you to actually see it. In what way? Has to exist. The quality has to exist first for you to see it. So 즐거워 precedes 보여요. Happy precedes look. They look happy. 즐거워 보여요. And you're adding more details about what kind of children you're referring to, which is the children playing outside. 밖에서 노는 아이들이 즐거워 보여요. 즐겁게 보여요도 괜찮아요. 맞아요. This is something that we can cover in a grammar class, but for 보여요, you can either use the adjective adjective, conjugated adjective, or you can make it into an adverb and say 즐겁게 보여요. Both are fine, but the point here, the most important takeaway is that content comes first, and then you see it, right? 즐거워 보여요, or 즐겁게 보여요. 맞습니다. So that was it, actually. And I'm actually surprised that it's only been an hour because, I spent so much time preparing for this class and I did not expect it to be over in just an hour. So, yeah, that's a very pleasant surprise. But I'm happy. But I'm really, really happy that we have successfully finished the class. And 여러분 수고하셨어요. You deserve to hear 수고하셨어요, which is kind of like a warm greeting that you say to someone who has done something challenging or that something that requires hard work. So it's expressing gratitude and acknowledgement at the same time. So 여러분 모두 수고하셨어요. 이제 더 자신 있게 말해요. Now, more confidently speak. Now let's speak more confidently is what it says in the message. 수고하셨어요. 이제 더 자신 있게 말해요. Yay. 키스님, I'm happy Vicky 선생님 live classes are back. Yes, I'm really happy to be back too, 여러분. 네. 그리고 this time I used a new software, which is Zoom. Actually, guys, I'm on Zoom right now, and this is being streamed on YouTube as well. I did not know that you could do that on Zoom. So this is really helpful and this saves so much money on my end because I don't have to pay for a separate live stream software, which I have been using for the past 2 years. But now I realize I don't have to because I use Zoom anyways. I pay for Zoom anyways for my private classes and everything. And so this is so cool. 네. 아무튼 여러분, I'm so glad, I'm so happy, and I'm so thankful that a lot of you guys joined. And also, you guys were really active when it came to participating. And so 네, that's always, encouraging when I'm having live classes. So I want to thank you all very much for that. 네, 그것도 정말 감사합니다. 그러면 여러분, I will end the class here. 네, I will end the class here. 로우님, 구독하고 좋아요 버튼을 누르세요. 좋아요. Subscribe, like, 맞아요. All that good things, all those good things. 좋아요. But what's one downside of Zoom live stream is that I cannot display the comments on screen, which is kind of 아쉬워요. But I'll find a way to work around it. 네. Because I love it when comments are displayed on screen, but I'll see what I can do. Okay, 여러분. 그러면은 I'll end the class here and 네. I'll see you guys in the next class or in the next video, in the next whatever. 그리고 I hope you all have a great day ahead. And 네, 다음에 또 만나요. 여러분 너무 감사합니다. Thank you for coming to class. Have a good Sunday. 감사합니다, Peach Panda님. I will stop sharing. How do I end the live? 잠깐만. It's my first time Zoom live streaming, so I do not know how to end the stream. There you go. I can click on this. Okay. Bye, guys. 여러분, 감사합니다.